Oh my God.
We look so old.
I know. It's been an eternity. It's been a century.
Could you believe 50 something weeks ago?
Yeah. No, I could not.
It was November, Kate.
Mhm.
November, let me see when the first release date was, because I can't remember off the top of my head. But I will find it in 3, 2, 1. So we launched the trailer to Shittin Bricks on the 29th of October 2021.
Oh my God.
We did 2 testisodes on the 7th of November. And then our first episode was launched on the 19th of November 2021.
Holy moly.
So shy of 2 full years.
Holy moly.
Anyway, hello, Kate.
Hi. How you going, Dom?
I'm fabulous.
That's so good.
It's a big day for us, and this week is wild with work, with moving houses, with 100th episodes. I'm fucking verschnickered. How are you?
I bet. No, I'm doing good. I'm on school holidays. I just got back from Hillsville, a few nice days up there, sitting around a fire and going to the sanctuary. It was delightful.
You feel very zen, in touch with nature?
I am. I'm zen. I'm so zen.
There were no mysterious bumps in the night, or?
Yes, there were, and I can't. Okay. All right. So last night I had asked Jess, who I was with, she has a baby in her tummy. And so during the evening last night, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, she's obviously gotten up and gone to the bathroom. And then she had said, can you leave a light on the night before? Because it's disorientating in a new place. So to get to the bathroom, it was at the other side of the house. So I left the range hood light on. And then so last night, sort of heard like running. And I was like, oh, she's just gone, and then just jogged back to her bedroom because she was cold or it's nighttime or whatever. And then she delivered me a coffee. She delivered me a coffee this morning and then said, and I heard when you got up last night. And I said, I didn't get up last night. I said, I did, but you did, because I heard you run back to your room. And she said, I didn't get up last night, but I heard the running like this. And then she did the sound. Ooh. And I was like, what? So we're both convinced. We checked all the doors and all the stuff. There was no way that anybody got in. Everything was all locked up. So I'm convinced that there was a ghost that was running laps in the lounge room. I spoke to my parents and they're convinced. They were like, it's fine. We've had this sort of experience before when we were staying somewhere, and then it was either a kangaroo or a wallaby or something along those lines, because they sound exactly like that. I guarantee you that's what it was. It was a kangaroo that's just run past the house. That's what it was. I don't think that it was. I think it was a ghost. So I'm going to stick with that. But yes, we did. It's so funny that you asked that, because I was just having this conversation that there were definite bumps in the night that were not either of us that were staying there. It was spooky.
If this was a normal episode, Kate would have done an entire episode on ghosts in cabins.
That's right.
Wilson's prom.
But is this a normal episode, Dominic?
No, fuck no, because it's 100, baby, and we're doing it different.
100 episodes. We're doing it different. I am so excited about this episode, folks. You should be excited too, because it is just going to be Dom and I riffing, reliving some memes, going back through our life, and I can't wait to share our stories.
Yep. Kate's hit the nail on the head, folks. We're gonna do a trip down memory lane, and then as a gift to all of our long-term listeners, if you can hold out until the end of this episode, Kate and I are going to make a very big fucking announcement.
Yes, we are. We are.
Ooh, we're so excited to share some crumbs.
I can't wait. I know. Little num breadcrumbs.
But in good traditional fashion, we Actually, no, let's not even bother with housekeeping. Let's just
You
get
don't want to do it?
straight into the
Are you
fun.
sure?
Yeah,
You
fuck
don't want to
it.
do any housekeeping at all.
Fuck it.
Sit
They
down,
know it.
Liz. Lizzie, don't worry about it. No, pop the mints away. You don't need them. No, put the trolley back in the cupboard, Dull. You don't need it. You don't need the housekeeping trolley today. It's fine. That's what I'm saying. Don't stop. She's tapping on the glass again, Dom. Have you got the squirty bottle?
This should
I
be
need a
the
squirty bottle.
emancipation of Margie.
Lizzie and everyone else who's joined us in the waiting room of our podcasts for now. It's pretty chockers in there. There's ants with mushrooms growing out of their heads. There's serial killers. There's prime ministers. It's a bloody nightmare in there.
And if you're an artist out there, we would love for someone to do a little cartoon drawing of what the Shittin Bricks waiting room looks like. But no, fuck it, Kate. Let's throw all the rule book out and let's just have fun and go down memory lane.
Let's do
our top 5 favorite episodes over the past 2 years each.
Yeah. I love it. I'm so excited.
Shall we do paper, rock, scissors to see who goes first?
Yeah, let's do it. Oh shit, is this going to work? Because it's a little bit.
Is it even going to work?
Okay. I don't know. We'll try. Okay, ready?
3, 2, 1, go. 1,
rock,
2,
paper,
3.
scissors, shoot. Scissors.
Oh shit!
We scissored each other.
We scissored.
Oh, sorry, everyone.
Let's try again.
Rock, paper. How slow are we doing this? You go first.
Okay, I'll go first.
You go first.
Okay, coming in at my 5th, which means it's not my top. We're going from, bottom to top.
Yes. Yep.
Start with the bottom.
Okay.
This one was hard. This was there was between 2.
Yeah.
And I ended up going with this one because it is without a doubt, out of all the fears that I have spoken and shared about, this is the fear that I probably interact with the most, Kate.
Okay.
And before I answer, I want you to have a guess with which one it is. Okay?
Yeah. I think something to do with your fear of the ocean.
Oh, see, you would guess that one.
All right.
But I thought about going down that route, but I decided no, I may save that one, I may not. So
there's so many as well.
I know, right? But I picked my top fear, and this was the hardest one for me to do research on because I had to look at it. And it is my fear of trypophobia.
Trypophobia. Okay. All right. Yep. As soon as you said looking at it, I was like, I know what it is.
And this was like my heaviest psychology-based fear with this. We went deep into this, right?
Yeah.
But Kate, for those that don't know, do you want to remind people on what trypophobia is?
Trypophobia is a whole bunch of holes spaced really close together. So something, and the people do those photoshops and things like that where it's on someone's hand. It's very something you'd find in corals, something you can find in trees, something you find in some fruits and things like that as well. But it makes people's skin crawl. And I am one of those people for sure. It's not real bad for me, but it's pretty, particularly that Photoshop one of the hand, yeah.
Yeah, and it goes back to potentially our fear of disease and things like that. And the iPhone camera, if you remember, Kate, the iPhone camera placement with all the camera lenses kind of triggered it.
Yeah.
But I have one quick memory to pull back from this episode, and I can't believe that we started with this. But Kate, I started this episode with I asked you a question, and it was, Kate, how's your gag reflex? And I proceeded to spend 10 minutes discussing all the different types of gag reflexes, why you may have a gag reflex, how to desensitize yourself to a gag reflex.
Amazing.
So, folks, if gagging is a concern of yours, a challenge, and
an
obstacle, maybe it's your New Year's resolution for this year is to learn how to gag a bit less.
There you go.
I highly recommend you going back in time and finding, what number was it? I can't even remember, Kate.
I feel like it was in the 30s, 40s.
Let's see if you were correct. If it was
in the 1940s?
If you get this right, I'm going to be so impressed.
Well, I've just recently looked through the whole list to try to work it out. What episode?
48. Episode
Oh,
48,
48.
Trypophobia.
Okay.
30th of September, so pretty much a year ago. Fuck.
Wow.
Oh, fuck. A year ago. That fucking scares me.
Oh, that is, yeah. Okay, so 48, Trypophobia. Yeah. So if you want to go back and hear about some gags, that's the way to go. Amazing. So it's number 5 for you.
Yeah, that came in at number 5 of the most, episodes, but it was a good one. If anyone wants to know, the one that almost tied with it was the tickled episode, but I trumped it with Trypophobia.
Trypophobia.
So that's my number 5, Kate.
Excellent. I found this tricky too, Dom. The fifth one, like the sort of the one I was going to talk about first, the one where there was sort of 2 or 3 episodes that could have got the number 5 spot. And I was also having a bit of a look at the episode numbers as well, because looking back, we have just had some crackers along the way, and it's been so incredible. So just to have that reflection and look back at what we've done. But for number 5 for me is a recent episode, a very recent episode, in fact. But I really enjoyed it because it was stemmed from an article that I saw, and then we were able to have a look at this in terms of a phobia and also a name of a syndrome, which turns out doesn't necessarily exist, that it's not real. And that's episode number 96. So you just go back a few episodes to our Stockholm Syndrome episode, which is number 5 on my list. And yeah, the reason that I loved this is because the story was something that just came to light recently about the fact that the psychologist, the man who coined this phrase, which, has been synonymous with people being captured and then falling in love or having a great bond or whatever it is with their captor. Yeah. He never interviewed the woman who he claimed had this. It was based on people being trapped in a bank, and then this woman, being diagnosed with this syndrome. But he never interviewed her. He never spoke to her. Never spoke to her about her experiences. He just said, oh, no, she was defending the guys that were holding them up in the bank because she had Stockholm Syndrome. Wasn't the case. She was just really annoyed at the police, and she was really annoyed at how the whole situation was handled. So she felt like it could have been handled better. So she was defending the people that robbed the bank purely because they took care of them. They weren't violent to them, which is really fortunate. I'm sure there's a lot of circumstances where that doesn't happen. But she was more picking on the fact that the cops and everybody involved in their rescue completely botched it. And they ended up being stuck in there for 6 days whilst the cops and the authorities tried to figure it out. And she was like, no, you're not listening to me. So it was the idea that Stockholm Syndrome was based on a fallacy. So whether or not it then, grew from that, and there's reported cases and things for sure, but every circumstance is different. And the original story that it came from turned out to be a lie almost. It just made up.
2 things from that episode still stick with me. Number 1, when we had our big hater who was having a crack at me for the Ned Kelly reporting in research, it just reminds me, like, hello, at least I didn't diagnose anyone with the fucking syndrome. So
which is now so well known.
Yeah. Like, at least I didn't do that.
Yes.
But I loved in that episode when she was just like speaking to the mayor or something, Kate, and she was just like,
she was.
Just
she was
make me fucking mayor, and I'll sort shit out.
The Prime Minister. It was literally the Prime Minister or the President. It's like the highest up. And she's like, let me take control of the cops and I'll sort this. Like make me Prime Minister for the day and I'll sort all of this shit out. And then he's like, oh, well, I don't think we can do that. And she basically ended the call with, well, go fuck yourself, and hung up. That was it. What a legend. So if you want to know about the fallacy of Stockholm Syndrome, go back just a few weeks to episode number 96, Stockholm Syndrome, and you can hear all about that story in more detail. But that was my number 5 on the top 5 list.
Good. 5 at 5 with Kate.
5 at 5.
Oh, that was a good one. Okay. Well, number 4 for me, And I'm surprised this one didn't poll a bit higher, to be perfectly honest. And it's quite possible that
I love that you say, I'm surprised it didn't poll higher. You made the list.
I know.
you could have put it wherever you want.
I could have, but I'm surprised. And I guess it speaks to what my top 3 is, but this didn't make my top 3. This just missed out. And I reckon a few of our listeners would totally rate this as probably their favorite. It's definitely the numbers reflect that it's always been in one of our top episodes.
Okay.
But I picked number 4, and I chose this particular story because it was the first time I think I did the whole mystery thing perfectly.
Okay.
And I also think it was the first time, Kate, we decided to, instead of doing, when we did a 2-parter or a 3-parter, instead of doing them back to back the next week, in 2 sequential weeks, this was the first time we put a gap in between, and it just pissed people off because they really wanted to know what the fuck happened.
Okay.
Can you guess what it is?
No, it's not popping into my head. Tell me, what's your number 4?
This one is Miracle Flight 571.
Okay, nice.
And this story, I just think it has everything in it. It's got my mystery. It's got my cannibalism kink. It's got rugby, which was a rugby player. It's got film, and it's such a good fucking film.
Yeah.
And there's no bad guy. Like, you can't be mad at these people for wanting to do everything possible to survive in the Andes Mountains. Like, you just can't be mad.
Amazing episode. I was hanging on every word of that episode, those episodes. It was amazing. That's a great choice. Very, very cool.
So Miracle Flight 571 is the Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571, and that's where the Uruguayan rugby team crashed in between Uruguay and Chile, and they crashed in the Andes Mountains in 1972. And I think, what was it? I'm trying to find how many days. It was something like months. It was months. It was
like 3 months or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I feel like it was 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
So they crashed on the 13th of October. Ooh, it's like not that long ago.
No.
And it wasn't until, where was it? It was, I'm going to find it.
Okay. I really
72 days.
72 days. There you go. Oh my God.
December.
That's a long time.
Just before Christmas.
I really loved how resourceful they were in their survival. So using the fuselage and then having some going hiking, some trying to find food, using resources from the plane and things like that, just trying to survive. It was an amazing, it's an incredible story.
Yeah, and remember the final 2 that just kept on hiking, and they got to the top, and then it was just like another fucking thing they had to, and they'd given up, and they were just walk themselves to death to give themselves something to do, and then they managed to survive. And just the beauty of the story of families acknowledging and going back and getting remains and things. I swear it is. I'd have to say it's probably, even though it didn't make my top 3 favorite episodes, I would have to say it's the best episode I ever delivered.
Okay.
I'll give it that.
Excellent. Give it that. Yeah. All right.
Whatever. So episodes, it was a 2-parter, episode 21 and episode 23 back in March of 2022.
Oh my God.
So far, that's a long time ago.
Go back and have a listen to those if you want to, hear that whole story. What I think too is those people that were hiking, like in the snow, they've had no food, they're trying to survive. Once you survive that and like you get home, your resilience must be so incredibly high. You would never really say no to anything, I think. You'd just be like, well, if I can do that, I can do quite literally anything. So no problems. You want to go and do some sort of fun run? Yeah, I can do a fun run. I fucking kill it. No worries. I'm in.
Imagine if you went on like the first season of American Survivor and you're like,
Yeah.
I
Uh,
I don't know if I kind of want to be
I
on that
don't
one's
know if
team.
I want to do it.
Let's give him the
Yes.
prize money, and I don't want to test it because he's
Just give
eaten
it to
people
them.
before.
They've done enough. Yeah, they've done enough.
All
All
right,
right.
Kate, what's your number 4?
Episode for my number 4,
Mm.
episode 41. So we're going back a little ways. We're going halfway back.
Yep.
Episode 41. And the reason that I picked this one is because it is one that I refer to the most in my everyday life in terms of factoids. And the episode is twins. So it was a story that I told about twins, about, nature versus nurture. And there were some
Yeah.
really fascinating stories. There was one story of 2 twins who were separated at birth. And then, one was adopted, one was, with the, birth parents. They were both so separated literally at the hospital. They were both called James. So these people don't know each other. They both
Yeah.
ended up being called James. Then what killed me was that they both married women named Linda. Then they both got divorced and they both remarried, but they both remarried women named Betty. That's too many coinkydinks in my book. It was
Yeah.
just the uncanny experiences of these people that didn't connect until they were married to the Bettys. And then we're like, I think that we're brothers. And so then they sat down and talked about their lives. They had really similar jobs. So they both worked, like one worked in security and one worked in the police force. Not the same job, but similar lines of work.
Yeah.
But to have both been called James, completely separate of each other. I know James a common name, relax everyone. But then to marry
Linda?
Linda's, divorce Linda, both marry Betty's, work in the same sort of area. Like it was crazy. It was mind-boggling and I loved it. And I tell that story all the time. Just a bit of like, little tidbit for my classes, or if we're ever talking about twins or anything like that, that popped into my head. So episode number 41, twins, made my list at number 4.
I find it so funny that you pick such a nice twin story, and my immediate thing is like those 2 girls that had their own fucking language and they were out to kill people and shit. Yeah. And they made a movie of it recently, and I think we shared it on our socials.
I thought you meant like the 2 girls, like from, was it The Shining or the...
Oh,
who are the twins? Like those as well. They just rock up in the little white dresses. That's what immediately popped into my head.
Yeah, there was a lot of scary twin stories, and I just love that you picked it. Like, that's Betty.
They married Betty.
I'm like, devil children.
Yeah.
Does that not sum Kate and I up perfectly?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay, we're hitting a lot under 50th episodes. It's like,
I know.
Nothing in the second half of the...
No, I know. Well, that's why I think that's partly why I picked Stockholm, I think, partly for that reason, where a lot of mine were early episodes, and I'm like, what does that say about where our podcast has gone? Or are these just ones we have fond memories of? Or I don't know, but I've definitely mixed it up a little bit. So my number 5 was in episode 96 and then episode 41. So what's your number 3, Dom?
I'm being such a cheeky fucker because my 4 was a 2-parter, but it's the one story, folks.
So. That's it.
My number 3. This made my number 3 for one simple reason. Like this is a story I used to talk about all the time. Just like Kate, you have your party story, tidbits that you like to have. This is a story. I mean, I'm a bit of a weirdo, and I have all these stories I just always knew. But this was a story that I know you didn't know, and it's
not surprising.
Australian claim to fame story.
Yeah.
But what sealed the deal and made this my number 3 is because it was like such a long-term mystery, and it was solved because I knew it was about to be solved, and I had a insider tell me. And in between the first and the second part, it actually got motherfucking solved. And we were the first podcast in the world to report on the solved nature of this story. So do you remember what it was, Kate?
I don't. I don't. But that again is not surprising, Dominic. It's not surprising. Oh, hang on. Wait. Is it the Isdal woman?
I'll give you
No.
a point.
Okay.
I'll give
All
you a
right.
point at least for knowing that it was along the same lines. It wasn't the
Okay.
Isdale woman.
Oh, I
That's the Iceland
know
one.
it.
What is
Yes.
it?
The Somerton Man.
Yeah.
Yes. I remembered something.
Well done, Kate. So again, creepily, we've had episode 48, we've had episode 41.
Mm-hmm.
This is episode 38 and 40. So
Oh,
around that
we
period,
hit some good. Yeah. Okay.
July, August 2022, we did
Wow.
Somerton Man Part 1, and then in between, you did Horror Hotels, and then the Somerton Man was solved. And it was just such a big deal. I mean, first of all, for me, I loved this as a mystery story. It had all the hallmarks of like a good classic, must have been a spy, was murdered. We don't know anything. The name tags ripped off their clothes. They've got the fucking body. They've got the picture. They've got casts of the person. And it's so mysterious. And there's luggage places, and there's a torn bit of a book, and the book's thrown in the back of the car near where the corpse was found. Like all this shit. And it was just such an amazing journey over however many decades, and science catching up. And they're using, do you remember they used the their teeth and analyzing the bones and their dental work and the metals that they used and the isotopes in their teeth to track where people were born, lived, traveled, had dental work. And oh my God, it was just it's such a cool story. It's such a good old-fashioned classic murder mystery. Or is it? And then it got solved, and it's the most cool fucking solution.
So
and
good.
Just recently, Kate, Lawrence Fishburne, who plays Morpheus in Matrix,
In the Matrix,
you know,
playing along at home.
And
Lawrence Fishburne, bingo.
Yes, bingo.
I know everybody plays that bingo.
But he did a special, and it was on ABC or something just recently. So there's so much to the case, and we only told like half of it, and we had to do 2 whole episodes, and we still couldn't do it all. It was just so cool. So Somerton Man is my number 3.
Love it.
Purely because it's the one and only mystery case, Kate, that we ever did, and it was solved live on air almost, and we were the first to ever fucking report it.
Amazing. Great choice at number 3. I love it. Okay, so I am going way back now.
Ooh.
Way back to one of my favorite episodes to tell, because it's something that I am really fascinated about, and I feel as though in a previous life I was perhaps a meteorologist or a storm chaser.
Mm-hmm.
So my number 3 on my list is episode number 6. So we are going way back to Weather Part 1. So I was able to do a couple of episodes. So Weather Part 1 was episode 6. There's a Weather Part 2 as well. But Weather Part 1 was my first one, and it was my favorite. We talked a bit about hailstorms. We talked a bit about volcanoes. One of the things that I wanted to get into was the pop culture reference of Dante's Peak. And I spoke a bit about whether or not they were weather. Very good. If they were accurate in their depiction of the volcano, and particularly the grandma walking through the acid lake and her legs burning. That is pretty spot on. So if there is a volcano, and then if the water acidity does change, and also the heat, depending on whether there's, lava and things like that. But that was accurate. And it was, something that I read an article about how they went through all of the different circumstances and scenarios, and they were like, no, it was pretty spot on from a perspective of people going through an active volcano and an erupting volcano. that was my favorite thing to look into, because I've always wanted to know whether or not that was true, or if it was something that just was designed to frighten me while I was frothing over Pierce Brosnan in 1996.
And I remember in that episode, Kate, I got so fucking angry because I'm like, nah, kill the bitch. Hated that. That whole second half of the movie wouldn't have happened if Granny hadn't have been such a difficult.
Yeah, if she had just left her house when she was told to, and then they're in the boat and they're singing "Row, Row, Row Your Boat."
From the beginning.
She really did. She had attitude, and then she had no legs. So really, that's the moral of the story. You can go back to episode number 6, Weather Part 1, and hear all about that. You can hear a story about how Dom and I experienced a really significant hailstorm here in Melbourne, and the damage and things that caused as well. But that was one of my favorite episodes because I got to refer a lot to Dante's Peak and the movie Volcano, and a lot of my stuff revolved around pop culture references, and that was one of my favorite ones that tied it all together. So I loved it. That was episode 6, and number 3 on my list.
It's kind of cool because you didn't do Weather Part 2 until February the next year. Your Weather number 1 was in December.
Okay.
And then you didn't do it again until February. So you
had other stuff to do.
Yeah.
Took a break.
And I look back at the topics of our stories from the old days, like, far out. They are some weird shit.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
It's so wild how all over the joint they were. But in a good way.
In a great way, I know, but they were. And we always had such different stories every week. I'd be like, so the grandma's legs have burnt off in the movie, and it's just so true. And then Dom would then she was raped multiple times. And she was cuffed to the floor and raped again, and then beaten and eaten alive. See you next week for Weather Part 2.
Yeah. It was so all over the shop.
It was the greatest. I loved it.
There was Krampus and theme parks and weather and clowns, and I'm like, Sodder Children and Cabin Fever, Albert Fish, possibly the most deep.
I know, horrendous.
That Albert Fish one, it didn't make my top list, but that Albert Fish episode was pretty much our first major break, and it went.
It went nuts.
Wild. And I think it's because all the serious podcasts out there just no, we're not doing it because it's just the worst story. And Dom's like, yeah,
I'll do it.
And that was a long one.
I love it. It was a long one.
Ate shit, and then he fucked shit, and then he ate some more shit, and it's okay.
All right, so Albert Fish gets an honourable mention. I do have a couple. I've got a couple of honourable mentions for later as well, but that's a great one. Well done.
Well, seeing as though, what was that? You just did...
I did 3.
That was your first.
Are you up to number 2?
Yeah, I'm up to number 2, folks.
Oh.
Okay, my number 2. My number 1 and my number 2... They've been neck and neck all afternoon.
Okay.
It came down to the wire on this one, and I think you'll agree why. But I ended up going to my number 2 because and this is really kind of funny. I have never done so much research for an episode as I did for this episode.
Okay.
Months, weeks. I reckon I could have done a whole 100 episodes just on this one freaking story. But this one, I just got so into, and I go back and I listen to this episode, Kate, and I just shake my head so much because it was just, and I hate the fact that it's so early on because it's it's one of the first episodes people's ever going to listen to. But I'm going back to the beginning, folks, and this is episode 1, Cannibal Island.
Yes. I'm surprised that that's not number 1 for
I
you.
know.
I am surprised. So I'm curious to see what ends up being your number one. Okay. I
Yeah.
loved this episode. And again, this is a testament to your kink for cannibalism and how much detail you went into and how much research you did. That was an incredible episode. And you're right. It's almost one of those ones where you kind of wish it was like 15 to 25-ish
Yeah.
in that sort of realm. But now that we have our listeners, go back and have a listen to these episodes. They're really, really good. And our format changed a bit over the course of our time and we got into a bit of a groove, but those earlier episodes are just something else.
We just didn't know. We didn't have our rhythm down yet. So we kind of went overboard on everything and had everything available. We had all the science, we had all the history, we had all the references, we had just everything. And there were, you know, like modern day references so you could relate to what you were getting. But that Cannibal Island story, I think, is still so fascinating. And I'm glad almost in a way that I did it to the level that I did it. If I did it now, I'd probably scooch through quite a lot of it.
Yeah, quite a bit. Yeah, no, I hear that.
But this was a really good example of like good old-fashioned storytelling.
Yeah.
And it was kind of what I liked about it the most, Kate, was it was a bit of an introduction for you and I, for you to get an idea in your mind of what I was trying to aim for.
Yeah, definitely.
And it was a heavy one. It was heavy on politics. It was heavy on so many things. And you got a full-on education, I think, out of that. I'm really proud of what I wrote for that one. It was like a school project.
Yeah, absolutely. But you should be proud of it. And it's, definitely one that people have to go back and listen to. That was one of the OGs and, one of the best. That was very impressive.
It's so funny. I'm looking at the script for it now, Kate, and I'm like, is that all I wrote? Like, really?
I know. I was having a look at some too, and, you know, later episodes, we were averaging anywhere between 12 to 20 pages of text that we would then read out, and we'd try to fit a lot of stuff in, and we would, try to fit as many either examples or the story or, you know, information. And then I look back at some of my early episodes and it's like 6 pages. I was like, what did we talk about for the rest of the time? We're not giving people shit.
Yeah. But anyway, if you're really into history and detail, I would recommend going back and listening. You probably have, but go back and listen to number 1. It's got famine. It's got, you know, history, the wars, what you know, gulags were, and
it's got something for everyone.
People. Yeah,
it really does, for whatever your kink is.
Do you remember the one bit I think that was so graphic? It was like we started off really, really strong. Was the woman that had the muscles and the meat off her leg bones and calves was all torn away.
Yeah,
and ripped away, and she somehow managed to walk and get to that family, and just the image of it and the historical, like, because it was the locals, like the nearby people that had no idea that this were happening, they documented this particular woman and her story, and it's just it was heavy. I started off eager beaver, folks, and I eventually eased into some of the more of the fun. But my number 2 was Cannibal Island, coming in strong.
Very good. Very good. Absolutely coming in strong. Okay, so this was, to be honest, this was one of my more kind of brutal episodes, I suppose, in the sense of what we covered and putting yourself in the position of being in this scenario. And this was tricky. Now, my number 1 has been a lock since we were talking about this episode. My number 1's been a lock. That's not been an issue. But this one here, this is it's close. It's close. It's a very, very close second. And this episode is episode number 61. It is titled Spanish Donkey. And it was one of my favorite episodes to tell. It was originally called Torture, but as we were going through and reading the episode, it had to be called Spanish Donkey. This was all about torture devices from, you know, the Middle Ages. And it was one of my favorite episodes to tell because I went through all of these torture devices, and then Dom and I discussed how we would imagine ourselves being involved in these torture devices and what that would be. And the phobia, because I got into the habit of talking about the phobias and everything like that, but it was one of my favorites too, which is cathosophobia, which was an intense fear of sitting or any sort of activity which is related to pain while sitting. So often, cathosophobia is staff meetings, aeroplanes. That's what I sort of, it's not an intense fear, but that's what I'd liken to that. But two of my favorite torture devices, which I want to revisit, was one being the pear of anguish, pear as in the fruit, not two of something, which was an opening device. So if you imagine what a pear shape is, it would then open up, and they would often put that in people's mouths and then slowly open that, and it would just crush their skull. Or they'd put it in your nethers, and it didn't often kill you. It was worse because it would just tear you apart from the inside out, and you'd just have a poor time with this pear of anguish. So they titled them really well. And the second torture device, which was the namesake of the episode, the Spanish donkey, was a sharp triangular piece of wood that they would force people to mount, and then they would force them to mount it nude, and then they would tie weights to the people's legs, and weights would just get heavier and heavier until eventually you would just rip from your junk to your throat. And that's
that one.
Oh, yeah. Nelly, like it's making my bits and pieces hurt now just thinking about it. But that was one of my favorite episodes. And I go through so many different torture devices. So if that's your cup of tea and you want to go back and have a listen, that was probably one of my favorite episodes to tell. But I think, Dom, that was probably one of my favorite episodes to tell to you and for us to talk about these devices together. It's just nonstop reaction and thinking about yourself in that situation and what you would do and what you'd prefer. Like, what would be your favorite? Yeah, the names are amazing. The names were amazing. So, yeah, episode number 61, Spanish Donkey, is the second on my top 5 list. A very, very close second to my number one, which I'll share in a little bit. But that was, one of my favorites.
I'm so glad that you did pick that one because it was pretty gruesome for you to do, but I think the names of the different torture devices saved it, and it's like, fucking hell, these things. And you were even like, Dom, pick one.
Yeah, which is out of all of these, we got to pick one. Which one are you picking? I can't remember which one you picked either.
No.
There's so many, but go back and have a listen to episode 61 and you'll be able to hear all of those devices and what Dom and I ended up settling on. Our favorite / least favorite.
No, it's horrid.
Dom, do we have a second before you get into your number one?
Yes.
Can I chuck in a couple of honourable mentions?
Sure, let's do it.
I'm going to chuck in a couple of honourable mentions before we get into our number one. So for me, I have 2 episodes which I would like to throw in as my honourable mentions for this week. The first one being episode number 88, so a more recent one. But it was an episode that I did on Pentridge Prison, which stemmed from me visiting the prison. So I went there and I experienced it, and I got to, understand a little bit about the history and the sort of inmates that were there and what had happened, and the fact that I had had that real world experience of going there and seeing it. It was different to something that I'd done because we hadn't had a lot of episodes. There was a few that you did, Dom, where you had actually traveled to these places, which was incredible. This was the only one that I had traveled to. It wasn't Thailand or something exotic. It was just in Coburg, but it was one of my favorites. So episode 88, Pentridge Prison, gets an honourable mention. And the second honourable mention that I would like to throw out was my first episode ever. And that is episode number 00. And that is our test episode, one of our very first ones. We're trying out the format, we're trying out storytelling, doing all that sort of stuff. And I told the story of Nellie Bly. That was one that was stemmed from me watching The West Wing and another pop culture reference. But Nellie Bly was an investigative journalist. She changed the way that people, it was all about psychiatric wards and hospitals. And she pretended to have a psychiatric issue to investigate what was happening inside these prisons and these hospitals, and she changed the way that they were managed and run from that day forward for doing her article and spending time in there. So that was amazing. So that's actually episode 00. So it doesn't even have a number. It was one of our test episodes, but it's very early on. And that receives my second honorable mention before we get into our favorites of 100 episodes.
Ooh, well done, Kate.
Thank you.
They were classics, and Nellie Bly had to get a mention. I knew it would. I almost thought it might be your number one, but it's gotten a lot of love and attention. So
there you go.
Okay, well, before I tell you what my number one is, we got to play the guessing game. I love
we have to
guess.
Oh my God.
So if you had to guess, Kate, looking back at our discography.
Okay. I'm having a look. I'm looking right now. Oh, there's some good episodes.
Bangers.
Oh, there's some absolute bangers. God, I love them. Okay. Oh, it's hard for me to say. Looking at this right now, two are kind of popping into my head just based on your delight of telling horrible stories in terms of not telling them poorly. I mean, telling stories of horrible people. Oh, I did like Macca's phone scam. That was a good one. That was a good one. That gets an honorable mention.
That was different.
Potentially. That was different. It was. Is it one of the like murderer ones? Or is it location based?
Because I would go for...
Okay, I'll go then. I'm going to throw it out there. I'm going to guess episode 27, Death Island.
Yes!
Yes!
You did it!
Yes! Kapow! Yes, and I know why, because you got to travel to an exotic location that was further than Coburg, not Joburg. Johannesburg is different. Oh, damn, number 27, a Death Island. Okay, talk to me about why you picked this as your number one.
Well done, Catherine.
Oh, so excited. I love that.
Out of 50, that's pretty good.
I'm happy with that. I'm stoked.
Yeah, so Death Island... What episode was it? 27?
27.
Yeah, 27. So it was still pretty early on in the piece, but it was the first time I got to travel somewhere, and we had the idea of, it would be so cool to do a story from wherever we're traveling to or going to. And the reason why it's my number one is the story's not even that great. Like, it's good. It's a good story, and there's definitely some mystery about it. But I think the most unexpected thing that I have learned, Kate, from doing this podcast with you, there's lots of things that I've enjoyed, lots of things that I've learned, lots of blah, blah, blah. But the most unexpected thing was the power of doing and saying and creating something like this podcast, and what impact that has, or its contribution to the negative of a community. And it wasn't until I got there and I asked the questions and I did a bit of digging that it really, really hit home to me that what you read in the media and what all the fun we have and all the bullshit that we talk and da-da-da-da-da. And we always knew this when we started, but it just really hit home when I did this episode that it can really perpetuate bad juju and stereotypes and media and everything. And I made such great friends with the people from the island, people that have traveled to the island, and they were all kind and gentle enough to not only listen to the podcast, and hopefully some of them still listen, but they also inspired me to then do another episode after a Brickener episode, the first Brickener episode, where I did not a retraction, but just an update and education on why we've got to be really, really careful about, perpetuating stigmas and repeating things and falling into the trap that is fucking mainstream media. And it was just a really good, it was a fun story. It was a great trip. It was lots of fun to record beforehand and then come back and record afterwards. And technically,
Yeah.
it is my number one fear, which is
Okay.
sharks and the ocean. And I
Yep.
faced my fucking fear and I went deep sea diving with sharks in Thailand at Death Island, or better
Yeah.
known as Koh Tao. So that's my
Correct.
number one.
Yes, well done. I'm so excited that I got to pick that. That's given me such a buzz.
Kate's like, I don't give a shit. I'm just glad I won.
picked it. No, but I knew because of the significance of that for that, like what you've just explained. That's made it different, and it made you feel something and understand more and have more of that cultural appreciation of a city, of a country, of a people, and that was what was awesome about it. So I'm so excited that made number one. Okay.
We would never have done that if we hadn't done the episode. It was just, I mean, the podcast. So it's just so cool that we got
that you got to do that. Exactly.
Do that.
All right. So Dom, with Nellie Bly off the table, Pentridge is off the table, Weather's off the table. Can you tell me, out of the episodes that I have done, what you feel like might have made my number one episode?
Okay, might have. There's a few here that I think that have, gotten potential.
Yeah.
I think there's the claustrophobia series, like all the getting stuck in fucking
the cave and stuff.
Stuff.
Yeah.
That was a pretty big one, and we had lots of fun doing that one.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to do Conscious in a Coma gets a bit of an honourable mention because I know you did a lot of work on that one.
Yeah, okay. Honourable mention.
But that's off the list.
Mm-hmm.
You did the Wrong Place, Wrong Time series, which was...
That's true. That was fun.
They were epic and they were quite fun.
They were.
There was also 127 Hours, which was probably the most controversial fucking episode.
Because you were so angry for the whole thing. What a fucking idiot. I can't fucking stand that clown. You're not even prepared. You deserved it.
I got really angry on that
so
one.
mad.
So
mad.
What was happening in my life at that time? But
yeah.
I think I'm going to have to go with a good old-fashioned classic.
Okay.
And I think I've got a pretty strong argument into this one, but I'm gonna vote that your fear of space was your number one.
Yes, Dom's got it. It's back.
Motherfucker, we did it.
Yes. This is a testament of how well we have gotten to know each other over the course of this podcast. It is episode number 2, Space. And it was one of my favorite ones to research, to record, because space scares the shit out of me. And some of my writing, when I look back, and one of the questions, because I asked questions, I said, okay, here's questions I have, so I'm going to get them answered, and I'm going to tell you in my podcast. My first question was, how long can a human in outer space last without a spacesuit before exploding? Because pop culture has taught me that if you take a helmet off, your head will just explode.
Yeah.
Okay? Here's the thing. You do not explode. Okay? So you would go out there. You would remain fully conscious for 9 to 12 seconds if you're exposed to a vacuum. But there's lots of side effects that you will experience, such it's quite cold, the radiation from the sun. So they don't cause immediate death, okay? But you get sunburnt, mutated, suffocated. You freeze to death really slowly, but you've got about 15 seconds to get yourself to safety before you pass out. And then you've got 1 minute or so after that for someone to rescue you before you actually die.
Yeah.
So you can take that little piece of information and you can put it in your skyrocket and you can use it when you're in space. I also was really, looking back at the episode now, I was really wanting to make a point that this happens in Total Recall, the film with Arnold Schwarzenegger, my pop culture reference. And I had written here, on a side note, it is my personal opinion that Total Recall is one of the best sci-fi films of its day, and I feel like if it wasn't Arnold in the lead role, say someone like Bruce Willis, it would have rated a lot higher. And I stand by that comment. I stand by that side note. And if you haven't seen Total Recall, do yourself a favor. And if you haven't gone back and listened to episode number 2, Space, then go and listen to it because it's my favorite one out of all of the ones that I've done.
Yeah, I remember the Bruce Willis comment. It was hilarious.
Dom, I am so chuffed we both got our number ones. I'm so chuffed. Like, that's made this whole episode. I'm so excited.
The guessing is fun.
It was great.
Yeah, it rings true. It really, really does. Oh, what a great top 10 episodes. Oh. And folks, what we're going to do for the next 10 weeks, we are going to go back and we're actually going to replay all these episodes for you. So if you're being lazy and you can't be bothered going back and listening to them yourselves, don't worry, because guess what? I'm just going to replay them for you anyway, because Kate and I need a little bit of a break.
We do. We're going to have a bit of a rest and a recharge. But Dom, do you want to talk about why we might need a little bit of a break?
Oh, Kate, love to. Love to.
It's not because we're going on extended holidays. I wish. But we are going to, in fact, be working harder on some a little bit different. So, Dom, take it away.
Yeah, Kate and I, we've done 100 episodes in this format and we've loved every minute of it. But I think, and we think, it's time for us to shake things up and do something a little bit different because, you know, you should never get too comfortable and it's always fun to challenge ourselves. And also, Kate and I bang on about being thespians.
We do. We do.
And to be perfectly honest, Kate and I have been having some really good chats about wanting to maybe challenge ourselves a little bit further and try and dust off some of those old acting chops and some of those amazing skills, which we've sort of dabbled in some of our episodes with our characterization and our, accent work. And
that's right.
Like that.
Really solid accent work through a lot of our episodes.
So Kate and I have decided that we're going to take 10 weeks off. We've already started working on a new format for Shittin Bricks. Don't worry, we're not going to lose our Shittin Bricks name and our Shittin Bricks vibe. We've worked too hard to fucking scrap all that.
It was to build all that. Yeah, exactly.
But we are going to take 10 weeks off and Kate and I are going to change the format. And instead of focusing on our top fears, because we've kind of tapped out on that, really, and doing like real life story stuff, we're going to go the opposite direction. And Kate and I are going to do our own original murder mystery content from scratch.
From scratch.
Using all the stuff that we've learned in the past 2 years, we're going to think of it as like modern day Agatha Christie, but Shittin Bricks vibes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the deal is, folks, we are going to go away. We're going to write and draft and edit and even record all in one big foul swoop, our own original storytelling. I'm going to sort of lead the charge on our first 10-part series and introduce you to a whole family of characters. And then Kate is going to take the lead and come up with her own, maybe 10-part, maybe whoever knows, whatever Kate's fancy is. And we're going to pre-record and do them in one big giant session, and we're going to do voices and sound and music and
some radio plays for you all. Yeah, it's going to be great. We cannot wait. We cannot wait. I am really excited because I came up with the character names, and, we'll give you more of a run-in. I don't want to spoil too much for you. I'm not going to tell you the names of my characters yet because I don't want to spoil it, but mine is going to take a bit of a one of my favorite genres is like noir detectives. So your 1920s, 1930s, that real kind of, moody vibe with the, kind of the music and there will be a detective, and it'll just be a lot of fun. And I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a good challenge for Kate and I, both on the writing and the acting and the voice work. We're really going to up the ante. And Kate, if you're up for it, I'm even going to read out the introduction for my 10-part series, which will be launching in the new year. Do you want to hear it?
Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, yes. I didn't think you were going to tease us with that. I thought that was going to be a little something special, but I love it. I mean, yes. All right.
We'll tease it again with some new folks, but you've made it all the way to an hour into our 100th episode. If you've made it this far, folks, you now get to hear the first few lines of the new series, which I'm going to read out to you. It is going to be called The Adventures of Constable Kunst and the Flaming Star. Ooh, okay. Once upon a time in the bustling city of Grimsby, there was a promiscuous and outrageously funny detective named Cleo Kunst. With her fiery red hair, bright green eyes, and an irresistible charm, Cleo had the uncanny ability to both attract and solve mysteries with ease. Now, Cleo was not your average detective. Her unconventional methods left her colleagues scratching their heads in bewilderment. She had a reputation for being a magnet for trouble, always landing in bizarre situations, but somehow she always managed to crack the case, leaving everyone in awe. And that is the first few lines of The Adventures of Constable Kunst and the Flaming Star.
Oh my God, I can't wait. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Oh, folks, thank you so much for joining us for the last 100 episodes of Shitting Bricks. If you've been there from the start, Chelsea, I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
Amy, James, there's been so many people have supported us, and we very, very much appreciate it. We can't wait to share with you our next phase of Shittin' Bricks. It's been an honor. It's been awesome.
Has. Thanks for sticking around with us, folks, and thank you, Kate. You've been the best fucking co-host ever. Love you.
Love you so much, Dom. It's been amazing. See you in 10 weeks.
Yeah, well, actually, we did make a quick mistake. We are going to do one more bonus episode because we do have the BooPod Network Halloween special, which is coming out in a week's time, folks. We're kicking off with a month long of non-stop urban legend episodes from all the BooPod Network. And Kate and I are kicking things off next week with the Australian leg of the story. So we'll see you next week for one special episode, and then we've got 10 weeks off.
Amazing. See you then, folks. Can't wait. Bye.
Mwah.